Hello and welcome to the Survive and Thrive webinar series. Thank you all so much for your patience as we were waiting for just a few more attendees to join us. My name is Kelly Condon and I am the program coordinator here at the Texas Oncology Foundation. And today we are so thankful to have Agnes Nowakowski leading our discussion on integrative oncology. I want to say thank you to those who participated in our polls just a minute ago. Those were really helpful just to let us know who was on this call. We have a lot of survivors and we have quite a few newcomers to our Survive and Thrive programming. So welcome to all of those who are new. Just a little background about the Texas Oncology Foundation. We are dedicated to providing support to cancer patients in the communities where they live, work, and receive treatment. These Survive and Thrive programs are just one way that we are active in your community. A few housekeepings before we begin. If you have questions throughout this presentation, you can go onto your control panel and you can submit any questions that you may have for our presenter, and she will answer them at the end. If you're having any technical issues, for example, viewing the slides, most of the time closing and reopening the webinar window will fix this issue. If you start experiencing audio issues at any time during the presentation, the best thing to do is go to your audio tab on your control panel and click the phone call, and a number will appear that you can utilize. There are handouts available for you on your control panel. There's a handout section. This handout is available for you during the webinar, so open it, download it, save it for your use later. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded and the online archive will be available for viewing after this live version. It will be on our Texas Oncology Foundation website under our program page. This recording will also be sent in a follow-up email to everyone who registered. At this time, I do want to introduce to you our presenter, Agnes Nowakowski. I know her from Cancer Rehab Austin, where she is the oncology acupuncturist there. I've also had the opportunity to work alongside her with our Survive and Thrive symposiums as well. Her passion is integrative oncology, to address not only the cancer treatment side effects, but as well as the healing and recovery. And she has actually recently just completed her doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So we are very excited for her, and we are so thankful that you are here with us today, Agnes. So go ahead and take it away.
Great. Audio good?
Yes, you sound great.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would love to take your questions as we're going through the presentation. So if there's something that you want to ask while I'm going through my slides, go ahead and put that into the chat window that Kelly was talking about. And I'll kind of keep an eye on that. And if there's, if I see it, I'll try to address it right away. Sometimes it's hard to ask questions at the end. You may forget. So go ahead and put that up there. I like to keep these talks as personable as possible. So, and while we may not be right in front of each other, I want to be able to answer your questions as quickly and as best as I can. Also, I have a question for you. If you could write in that chat window at any time, give me an idea of what have been some of your barriers to utilizing some of these supportive services, utilizing integrative oncology services. So that's something that I would love to hear about from you. So at any point, if you could type that in for me, that would be great. So a little bit about me. I am a specially trained acupuncturist. I've been focusing in the oncology world for about 8 years now. A couple of years ago, along with some of my colleagues, who's a physical therapist and massage therapist, we opened up Cancer Rehab Austin, which is really the first integrative oncology, highly specialized integrative oncology clinic of its kind in Austin. And everything that we do is here to support you as you are going through this journey. So let's go ahead and get started. I also just wanted to point out there's a really fantastic resource for you. By the way, Kelly had mentioned that there's that handout. That handout is 2 pages of resources that I've listed for you, one of which is called the Society for Integrative Oncology. This is a group of hundreds of practitioners throughout the world. We have an annual conference that we all go to. Really, it was spearheaded by some of the big cancer centers. So we're talking Memorial Sloan Kettering, MD Anderson, Dana-Farber, Osher, et cetera. Some of these big comprehensive cancer centers, and working alongside physical therapists, acupuncturists, massage therapists, social workers. There's just a great collaboration that happens in that group. And on the website, there's a great resource for patients, and it has to do with the guidelines that have been issued. And there's some specific ones for breast cancer, so Integrative Oncology guidelines for breast cancer, for lung cancer. I encourage you to check that out. It's a rather lengthy paper. I think it's about 40 pages, but there's some great info in there. Okay, moving on. So first of all, let's just talk about some of the different definitions. I think this is a really important topic that we need to discuss, and actually timely enough. The newsletter coming from Society for Integrative Oncology today in my inbox was talking about how important it is to make sure that our patients and that the public in general understands what the differences are. So you may have heard about complementary medicine and alternative medicine. Combined, the NIH used to call this CAM, C-A-M. So alternative medicine is where we are using different, hence alternative, modalities instead of conventional medicine. Complementary medicine, on the other hand, were were treatments that were used alongside. So if you look at it, it was kind of 2 circles where they were maybe not quite overlapping yet, but they were working side by side. In integrative medicine, we actually use a multidisciplinary approach and using evidence-based practices. That is really the important key here, is that everything that we do in integrative medicine is based on research. We have thousands and thousands of research articles to help support some of these modalities. And now, therefore, that circle has kind of overlapped, and there's a section where we are now using integrative medicine together. What used to be called CAM, as I mentioned, has now kind of been switched over to CIM, C-I-M, complementary and integrative medicine. So really kind of the backbone of integrative medicine, and we're talking about integrative medicine right now, not integrative oncology. We'll define it a little bit more. But the backbone is really understanding and utilizing this whole person approach. So your body, your mind, and spirit. And actually, along with that, we've also incorporated the lifestyle. So what support networks do you have around you? What kind of community are you in? And looking at not just the whole person, but kind of the whole system from a top level view. And it's so important that this idea of patient-centered care, where you are in the middle here and we are working around you to support you. And so, as I mentioned, it integrates conventional and complementary methods. And uses less invasive interventions before costly. So idea is that can we catch some of these potentially chronic conditions earlier on? So we're talking about prevention as well, and thereby reducing costs later on. And also the importance of utilizing a team, and so we are all in this together. That doesn't just mean the team between your medical providers and your integrative therapists, but it also includes you. You are part of the team, the most important part, I would say, and also your family, your caregivers, your friends, whoever it is that you interact with, so that we can better understand and serve you. And at the bottom, kind of here, I put this at the bottom, it could have been at the top, is this ability to activate the body's healing response, right? Like our bodies are just these amazing things that we have, and we actually want to be healthy. Our bodies every day are making these decisions about what do I focus on today? What can I heal today? We really want to be in this middle balanced homeostasis state. Oftentimes we're just needing some assistance to get our bodies back into the middle. Here in Austin, Texas, we have Dr. Matthew McCurdy, who's an integrative oncologist I work with a great deal. And I went to one of his talks recently, and he said, integrative medicine maintains that healing is always possible, even when curing is not. And I just really loved this concept that no matter where you are in the continuum, whether you're going through chemo and you're just really feeling terrible, or you're a survivor and you are a thriver, the idea of trying to be the best that you can be, so we can help you be the best that you can be, even if maybe quite at this point a cure is not possible yet. But this idea of taking care of yourself as best as you can. So I like this little picture of that. It's essentially healthcare that's focused on you. So in the past, what used to be the center was cancer, the disease, and all the medical team was kind of working around cancer, the disease, the diagnosis. And now what's in the middle is the patient, the entire patient, not just focusing on that cancer diagnosis. Okay, this was a little diagram that was published by the NIH a long time ago, but kind of gives you an idea of what's considered in this big idea, this big section of complementary and integrative therapies. And so you see here from the mind-body medicine aspect, you see biologically based, such as herbs, vitamins, and this is where we would be talking about diet as well, lucid massage, chiropractic, acupuncture, therapeutic touch, and then, of course, some of the whole medical systems as Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, and homeopathy. And then in integrative oncology, we take that down, taper it down a little bit further. So the SIO, Society for Integrative Oncology, we, at our conference last year in Chicago, a big portion of this, it was like this big reveal for us, was something that the society had been working on for a while, and which was to establish a definition, a solid definition of what is considered integrative oncology, because in the big picture, this is actually still considered an emerging field. And so I wanted to put this up to you, number one, so you do have access to these slides so that you'll have this, and again, to educate you. So reiterating the patient-centered approach, and again, this evidence-informed idea where we are only using modalities that have very strong benefit to you as the patient and have very high safety standards. And again, this is happening alongside conventional cancer treatments. And lastly, but perhaps the most important aspect, is this idea of empowering you. One thing I want you to get out of this talk today, and I hope that not only are you going to get some information and maybe you'll be inspired to do some research, which I hope you will be, but I want you to feel empowered that there are options, and then there's other practitioners here that can help you along your journey, and that we are all working together in a kind of orchestrated effort. Kelly, would you, while I'm talking on the slide, would you pull up that question or the poll? Thank you. Well, we are going to put up a little poll here, and I'm curious as to how many of you have tried integrative therapies. This is a fun thing to watch. Oh, great. Well, I mean, it basically looks like we are split 50-50. Thank you. I was at a medical school meeting last week, and we were talking about this idea of conventional model cancer care versus integrative oncology. And one of my colleagues there said this quote here, and I just thought it was, I wanted to bring it up because I just love this idea of living with vitality, with, through, and past cancer. So again, kind of bringing it down to living the best that you can, whatever stage it is that you are in this process. And this little picture here I thought was also very fitting. So again, that whole body, mind, spirit, linking it all together. We are not any one singular being, but we are a whole, very complex system. So one of the major components of integrative oncology is that we are helping to manage side effects of conventional treatments so that you can finish your therapy. Typically, as most of you probably already know, you are going to be a cancer patient for about a year. And it will probably, you'll have to deal with chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, some kind of combination. And there's all sorts of side effects that you're dealing with throughout that. And then you'll be in survivorship mode. And then there's a whole other set of side effects and issues that we're dealing with. So using supportive therapies, we're trying to help you get through this entire process as elegantly as possible. And in that, we're hoping to potentially increase your well-being, decrease your side effects, and also, I think something that's really important as well is that this approach improves the doctor-patient relationship. So when you are having a conversation with your oncologist about the fact that you want to do some massage, or your oncologist mentions, you know, I heard that acupuncture can help with your neuropathy, that conversation all of a sudden changes because this is what I'm hearing from patients, because now they're feeling like their oncologist is looking at them from a little bigger picture as well. And that is, you know, it's so important to have a great relationship with your medical providers because you're going to be seeing them. And the more honest and more direct you can be, the better outcomes you're going to have. And also, I brought up this idea of reducing costs. So there was a interesting article that just came out of the Mayo Clinic where their integrative practitioners, in this case it happened to be massage therapists and acupuncturists, who were working within the hospitals, were actually able to notice some very important changes in their patients' health. For instance, infections after a surgery, new tumors that they were able to identify. And this is because as integrative practitioners, we usually see you either weekly, maybe bi-weekly, but not only that, but we see you throughout the entire process. And we are looking at your skin. So for instance, for me, if somebody comes in and they are going for radiation, I want to see what your skin looks like, maybe under your armpit. That's probably somewhere you're not really looking. I want to look at your scars. I'm checking for any redness. I'm looking for swelling, etc. You know, these are things that if we can catch some of these potential issues earlier, it's going to be so much better for you. But of course, for the insurance companies, they're also thinking about this as how can we reduce their costs. I had a patient that came in who had some peripheral neuropathy, and his feet were so numb that he didn't realize that he had a sore on the bottom of his foot that was probably about that size. And because he came in to see me, obviously I was, you know, doing my check, and nobody had thought to take his shoes off, take his socks off, and look at those things. So another reason why this kind of a multi-dimensional approach is so important, and definitely very similar thing with massage therapists, with physical therapists. You know, we are actually putting our hands on you and seeing changes and potentially finding them earlier for you. So I like numbers, and I thought this was really interesting. So, you know, how many people are actually even using integrative oncology? And if you just look between pediatric, adult patients, women, I mean, and these are wide ranges, say 25 to 90%. But what this tells us is that there is a high interest. And I will say that integrative oncology really got its start, and thanks to you, because you have demanded, requested that these services be made available to you. And so because of that, things really started to shift in the research world, and we started looking at these very specific quality of life measures, patient-centered measures, these outcomes to look at what it is that you're actually interested in, as opposed to just basic science research. And of course, that's also very important. See, the difference is that now when we're doing research, specific and especially in integrative oncology, we are looking at which modalities are going to help you and what's more important to you. Okay, so last year in 2017, a study came out where this group looked at 45 the big U.S. comprehensive centers and what modalities is it that they were using in their in these big centers. And so here I've kind of, I pulled those out for you, and then I also listed the number. So typically, almost 100% of these large cancer centers were using physical activity, so exercise, within their practices, yoga, tai chi, rehab. Nutrition and diet came in next at 95%. And then oncology acupuncture, mindfulness and meditation. Wow, there's just so much research that has come out on how important our mind is in this whole process. You know, where our minds go, the body follows. So we have to retrain our brain that also wants to be in the middle, but very quickly it'll go sideways, left to right, and kind of retraining. I think Deepak Chopra calls it the monkey brain, retraining that brain. It's so important. And research shows us that not only are you able to kind of help some of the side effects that you're dealing with, but it actually changes our pathways in our brain. And it's so powerful to think that we can actually change how our brain is working. Okay, of course, massage as well, oncology massage, social and spiritual support. So we're talking support groups, so important as well. We are learning more and more as to the importance of having support groups for you to be able to talk to other patients who are going through the same thing. We'll talk about this a little bit more when talking about stress, but really just an important topic that I discuss with all of my patients. And then about 66% are using botanical supplements. Just by the way, Memorial Sloan Kettering has a really great app for this. I should have put that in this slide. But they have a great resource and an app that you can put in different botanicals, and it'll give you potential side effects or interactions with different drugs, and I use that a lot, but anybody can use it. So I encourage you to check it out if you need it. So here I included this for your information because it's important for you to see. What I like about this slide is that, as you will notice, there's kind of a lot of overlap, right? And so because a lot of these modalities really affect so many different parts of us, that we can use them separately and together. The power really is when we're all working together. But instead of going through this, what I'm going to do is kind of switch things upside down, and we are going to get into some typical side effects that I see in my practice. Common things that I often hear my patients talk about, and I think this is probably of the greatest use to you. So what are some things that you can be doing? And also I'm going to encourage you again, the best ways to really approach this is to start working with an integrative practitioner that can help you along this whole journey. Okay. So fatigue, gosh, this comes up whether you are just starting out on this whole journey, whether you are in recovery. Fatigue is just something that everybody battles at one point or another. So much research has been done on exercise. We know that it increases your mood, your cognition, your quality of life. Big thing is preventing recurrence and improve survival. Lots of studies on that too. You're probably tired of talking about exercise. And I almost wish that there was a different word we could start using, because sometimes I think, especially if we aren't really doing a lot of physical activity, when somebody says, "Are you exercising?" and you say no, I think there's a lot of judgment and guilt that comes out, and it doesn't need to be that. But I wanted to bring this up and putting exercise up at the very top, because it's so important for not just fatigue, as you'll see, for other side effects. But I want to encourage you to reframe this a little bit. So let's talk about it more of just some kind of movement, something to get you going, and let's set some realistic expectations. So for instance, in general, when I'm working with patients, I tend to look at things in 1 week block. So not every day, but a week. And I might say, this week, are you able to take a walk and pick up the mail from the mailbox? And having that dialogue, understanding that we are both working on this together, I'm here to support you. Let's set some realistic goals so that you can attain them, because if we set unrealistic goals, if for instance your doctor says, well, you should be exercising 45 minutes a day, and you're not anywhere near that because you just had your chemo and you are not able to get off the couch for a week, either you're going to kind of gloss that, your eyes are going to gloss over, or you're just going to feel like things are, somebody's out of touch, like, things aren't, you're not working together. So let's set some realistic goals. I did some shadowing at a number of cancer clinics here in Austin the last few months. And one of the practitioners, when I love this suggestion, said to her patient, when you're on the couch, when a commercial comes on, pick some kind of a commercial. When that commercial comes on, stand up and just march in place for the duration of that commercial. And I love that approach, and I watched the patient response, and she was like, okay, I can do that. That's what I want to hear. I want you to hear, I want to hear you say, yes, I can do that. We'll start there. We'll move on. So again, just encouraging you to try to move as much as you can. Yoga can be so powerful for this. Lots of research done on this now. Yoga is one of those interesting topics, because 20, 30 years ago, it was like, oh, it's this hippie, dippy thing that people in California are doing. And now there's just so much research that has come out on the benefits of yoga. The thing that I love about it is it combines the physical aspect as well as the the mind, because there's always some type of meditation that's involved. And the other thing is, especially for yoga groups that are focused on cancer patients, you're also getting some of that support, that social connection, that support. And so you can kind of check 3 boxes off at once. And so yoga, I think, is just so great for all of those reasons. Great data that has come out on both massage and acupuncture for fatigue. As an acupuncturist, I treat this a lot. Generally speaking, just to give you an idea, when you are going in for acupuncture, you give yourself 6 to 8 sessions. That's really been a lot of the data that comes out, the research that we do specifically in acupuncture. Most of those studies are done around 6 to 8 sessions. Nutrition, this is the foundation. These are the building blocks of what we're giving our body. And if we don't give our body some good fuel, it's really difficult for our bodies to try to heal. So, and again, I like to be very realistic with this. If you're going through chemo, it is going to be difficult for you to be eating a super healthy diet with, lots of vegetables and fruits, because you are probably just wanting a cracker at the end of the day, and that's okay too. That's perfectly fine. We just need to, let's focus on getting through this. So I do use some supplements for patients that are going through chemo. Very basic things, small doses. I also really recommend doing green juices, not smoothies, green juices twice a week. You will want to dilute that in water, 50-50, 1-to-1. Those juices, the green juices, can be kind of hard on our stomachs, which is why I like to dilute them. Oftentimes we have friends that are coming over, calling you, hey, what can I bring? Say, bring me a green juice, and drink half of it, save the other half for tomorrow. And then, of course, I'm sure you've probably already heard about this, reducing sugar. We can all reduce our sugar intake. I think what happens for a lot of cancer patients is, there's a lot of GI issues, from nausea, vomiting, GERD, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, upset stomachs, etc. So it's difficult to eat a balanced diet. And our bodies will crave the sugar because it's such a quick source of glucose, of the energy that it needs. And I know there's kind of ideas, patients have said to me, well, I've heard that cancer feeds off sugar. There really isn't any data to show that. I think that it is just because your body's looking for some quick fuel that it needs. So oftentimes, be sure to look at your red blood cells counts, and your blood counts in general. This is something that I always look at, as I'm always looking at my patient's blood work. And I see this, pretty much everybody is anemic on some level. And even when you are within range where you want to actually be, if you're looking at your red blood cells or your hemoglobin rather, you're always actually trying to be more in the middle of that range. And even that range may not be the right range for you. But if you are low, I really would encourage you to talk to your practitioner about potentially doing a very easy on the stomach iron supplement. There's one that I really like. It's liquid. You can just do a half dose of that. But it can really help you and help those red blood cells recover. And I also want to remind you, with fatigue, this is so important that just physiologically, our red blood cells take about 120 days to regenerate. So we're talking 3-4 months. If you're adding in white blood cells to that, it could be closer to 6 months. I want to encourage you to be patient and be kind to yourself, because I know that you get to the point where you just want to be done. You want to be done with being a cancer patient, or you want to be done with your chemo, or you want to be done with everything, and you're still feeling tired. So remember, just physiologically, this process of rebuilding takes a really long time. And give yourself the permission to rest when you need to say no when you need to, because your body is still needing that support. So even though you maybe are off the, maybe you're finished and off of the conveyor belt, so to speak, there's so much healing that still needs to go on. And sometimes patients tell me that they've heard that it'll take them 1 to 2 years to start feeling better after they finish with the fatigue, after they finish all of their therapies. And I will say that I think it's closer to 3 to 5 years for that. So again, be patient, understand that your body has gone through a lot, and have gratitude for that your body has gotten you to where it has. But do talk to your medical provider about potentially giving yourself a little bit of a boost with a gentle, simple iron supplement. Also, ginseng has been showing some really great results. There are 2 varieties that you want to look at, American and Wisconsin. Those are the 2. And especially the Wisconsin ginseng, we talked about that at the conference, at the SIO conference last year. I got to meet one of the researchers in that. They were finding that women had great results, and this is in survivorship mode, so not while you're doing your chemo, that even 6 months after, up to 6 months after taking the ginseng, they were still having some positive results. So definitely something to consider. Okay. Dr. Crystal Zuniga is she's a nutritionist, and this came up on her Instagram feed, and I just wanted to share it with you. If you didn't need any more support and help and encouragement in getting some regular exercise, I wanted to share this with you, share this picture with you. But then also, once again, you know, my main thing here is let's be realistic with our expectations. Okay, I've got 15 minutes here, and so let's get through here. All right, I have a lot of info still. So hot flashes. Let's talk about this really quick. There's a really major difference with hot flashes. So are they hormonal, or is it an issue of temperature regulation? So if you are going through chemotherapy, what happens is you are getting essentially a toxic substance. And this toxic substance is building up in your body. In Chinese medicine, we talk about this as this idea of venting heat. Your body's trying to get rid of this heat. Typically, a woman who is going through menopause naturally will have some level of heat that comes out of her hands and her feet. Maybe you've heard of some women who actually will cut little slots in their socks to give them some airflow, or some women will, when they sleep, they kind of leave the covers off of their feet. But in patients who are going through chemo, you are typically experiencing heat in your chest, in your face, sweating in the back, and your face. So it's all kind of trying to come up here. Most of my patients talk about having cold hands and feet. So again, it's this idea of your body is actually just trying to regulate its temperature. One thing you can do to help with this is exercise early in the day. So try to sweat to get that heat out. And not only has that shown to be effective in research, but actually when I have recommended this to my patients say that it does really help them. Avoiding some triggers, definitely coffee and alcohol, and especially dark colored. And so Oh, sorry about that. I was just reading something from Kelly. Especially the dark colored liquors. Patients don't like to hear when I say you're going to have to limit your alcohol intake. So try light colored. So stay away from the red wine, try white wine, champagne. Sometimes patients say that they can get away with a little bit of vodka and some soda water. So you'll have to experiment on yourself with that. I'm not promoting drinking a lot, but I do want to share that with you. Guided imagery, so important. There was a study that showed that women who were using guided imagery and they were imagining these ideas of this cool mountain, they were able to decrease their hot flash scores by 40%. And that to me is huge. Acupuncture has shown great efficacy in these hot flashes. What you will notice first typically is that the intensity of the hot flashes will decrease. So you may still have the same number. It's important to keep good record of how many hot flashes you're having. You'll want to share that with your practitioners. Again, that's 6 to 8 sessions. And then if you are in survivorship and you are on hormone therapy, consider changing medications. There are some different hormone options for you. So talk to your oncologist. You may be able to try a different one. If you want to stay on the one that you're at, be patient, try some of these other things. And then, you're probably going to have to be on the hormone therapy for 5 to 10 years. And so it is important to try to get this under control. And also, let's be realistic that you may not be able to completely eliminate your hot flashes. I'm always wanting to decrease your hot flashes. Okay. Kelly, I actually haven't been seeing any questions come up. So if you've got something, can you ask me?
Absolutely. We have had a lot of questions come in, so it's very exciting.
Okay.
I want to start out with you had thrown out the question, what barriers are keeping people from using these supportive services? And so one thing was just people have been saying their lack of knowledge of what is out there and what's available. And so I think the resources you have provided in this are wonderful. Another issue that came up was price and just discussing how insurance doesn't cover these integrative medicines a lot of the time. So do you have any resources or can you speak to cost-effective ways?
Sure. So actually, acupuncture is covered by quite a few insurance companies. Not the case for massage therapy. I don't know of any insurance that covers those services yet. Also, if you have, and physical therapy will definitely be covered by your insurance plan. Medicare itself does not cover acupuncture. It does cover PT. However, some supplemental Medicare plans do cover acupuncture. Nutrition is one of those kind of gray areas. Sometimes it can be billed to try to get insurance to cover it by other practitioners. And so that just kind of depends on your plan. But I will say that a lot of these kind of supplemental coverage is usually kicks in once you've met your deductible, and a lot of cancer patients have already met their deductible, at the beginning of the first week in their treatment. So it is absolutely worth checking into.
Awesome.
And then also a lot of so for instance, the Flatwater Foundation here in Austin, they provide free services to cancer patients around mental health issues. There are groups that help with kids Those are also free. So like camps and groups for kids of cancer patients that are needing some support, that's also
Mm,
free. You know, there's a lot of ways to access some of these. It is, I absolutely agree that I think a big challenge is just the knowledge.
awesome. And then one more barrier that a lot of people were sharing was that they have a lack of support from their oncology team to accept these integrative cares, and as well as family members who are a part of that care team. So what would you say, how should they start this conversation?
So I would, number one, encourage you that to find the best team for yourself. Um, it is absolutely normal and fine to get a second opinion. And I will tell you that I personally work with a lot of oncologists, medical oncologists here in Austin, and radiation oncologists, and surgeons, and integrative oncology. They are out there. And it's not that they are not supportive of it. Most of the time, it's just that they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So what has really happened, and it's been what's been amazing here for us, is that once your oncologist understands and feels comfortable with the fact that we, as integrative oncology therapists and support staff, so to speak, are especially trained in this, that we work specifically with the cancer population. Once they understand that we are part of the team, part of the solution, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
more often than not, they're actually very happy to have us on board. So, and I think that part of that, honestly, is I'm not sure how often patients actually even mention it to their oncologist because they think that maybe they're going to get a negative answer. But I've found that oftentimes, if you say something, they're all of a sudden kind of light up, like, oh, that would be great, you know. And so one thing that we do in our practice is we also send notes back to referring oncologists, and I think building that relationship is important.
Very good. There were a few questions that came in that were kind of specific, and they wanted to get your opinion on certain situations or things they're experiencing and kind of what integrative medicines you would suggest. So one of those was after the treatment and they were having hair loss. What are some ways that they can speed the hair growth?
Yeah. So first of all, chemo kills fastest growing cells. So that would be your GI tract, which is why you get the nausea, the vomiting, all sorts of GI disturbances, various things, heartburn, etc. Your hair is also one of the fastest growing cells, as is your skin. Probably you guys have heard of this phenomenon that happens where patients have like beautiful skin after they go through chemo because they're constantly, these cells are constantly having to regenerate. The best thing to really do after you lose your hair is to make sure that you are applying coconut oil on your scalp because your hair is starting to come in, and what we don't want is scabs forming. And sometimes people will ask me about taking a biotin or some of these other supplements. We really don't know that those help. They're not going to hurt. But the important thing here is that keeping your skin moist enough so that the hair can poke back through, so to speak, and you're not getting ingrown hairs and you're not getting scabs.
Mm, good.
Coconut oil. Coconut oil is one of those things that I recommend for everybody.
Everything.
Yeah.
Another situation that was brought up was experiencing numbness in your hands and feet. Is
Yes,
acupuncture a good solution?
absolutely. So I'll be talking about that coming up. We've got a whole slide on chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy. Yes, absolutely. We'll talk about that next.
Do you want to keep talking? We have a lot of questions, so if you want to
Okay.
keep going.
Do you need me to be done in 5 minutes? I'll try to get through as much as I can here.
Okay, I'll stop you at 5:30 and we'll do the rest of the questions.
Okay, great. So let's talk really quick, and I don't want to talk really quick about anxiety and stress management because it's so important. If there's one thing that I could take away from all of my cancer patients with pain, with with really the suffering that happens, if there's just one thing that I could take away, it would be the anxiety and the stress that's associated with this. That happens not just while you're going through the entire continuum, but every PET scan that you have afterwards, every appointment that you're going in, every time you're getting your blood drawn. It's just constant. And we have to work every day really hard to get our mind right, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to kind of beat this beast, so to speak. So once again, I'm going to really, really press you to look into some guided meditations. I'm not talking about doing 1 hour a day of, think of nothing, because that's just not realistic. It's really hard. It's hard for anybody to do that. There's a resource, Memorial Sloan Kettering. I included this. They have a whole bunch of guided meditations on their website that you can access. All you need to do is 10 to 15 minutes, but you have to do at least 8 weeks. This is based on some studies. So important. Tapping, we're actually going to do a little video on this. Tapping has to do with positive affirmations. Again, keeping yourself on track, your brain on track. Music therapy. When you're going into your infusion, take music with you. Take music that brings you joy. There's a group in Ohio that they actually have little iPods that you can check out in their infusion rooms, and those iPods have guided meditations already on them, all sorts of different music, because music therapy, it's like the smell. Sometimes you smell something and it reminds you of something familiar. Music also has that ability to actually remind us and change our brains. Okay, write a worry list. I love this. I heard one of the medical oncologists talk about this when we were doing rounds together, and she had suggested, just write down the things that you are worried about, and then now you don't have to, you give yourself permission to take it out of your brain and put it on a piece of paper. Again, support groups. I recently had heard, and this is what a great idea is, this idea of doing texting groups. So, you're tired, you're on the couch, you're really not in the mood to get in your car, it's hot outside, and get to a support group. But if you have a group of survivors or patients in a similar situation that you are in, and you can just say, hey, I'm really down right now, or wow, my pain is just too much, and somebody can text you back. There's also that anonymity that I often hear patients talk about, where sometimes they don't want to go to a support group because either they don't want to hear about the terrible things that other people are going through, or they're just scared, or they're insecure. And so this idea of doing a texting group, I thought was really great. The importance of getting of the healing touch. So touching ourselves, touching each other, getting hugs. You'll often see massage being offered in the infusion rooms. Not only is it good for kind of some of the side effects that we talk about, but absolutely having somebody touch you, so important. In acupuncture, we use certain points to help with balance that fight and flight response, so your parasympathetic and your sympathetic systems. But all of this together, I want you to think about the holistic system, and what is it that you can do from a bigger picture, not just one thing. Okay, so pain, number one, is identify the source of pain. Pain is our body's way of trying to tell us it needs some help. Something's wrong, it needs a little bit of help. So instead of trying to always block it, let's think about it, let's try to figure out where that pain is coming from. And be really open about what your threshold is. And it's okay to reach out and get some medication if you need to. I know everybody's really, concerned about the opioid crisis, and absolutely, as we should be, but at the same time, being in pain for a really long time you're going to be much more tired. You're going to have more stress and more anxiety. So being realistic about where your pain is at, seeking out palliative care, which by the way is not the same as hospice. There's some great palliative care doctors here in Austin that I've worked with who have some really insightful ways of trying to deal with some of these side effects. Physical therapy, of course, can help. Range of motion, lymphedema and cording, all of that is so important. especially after surgery, I really encourage all of you to see a physical therapist, either and or before you do your surgery. They will do some measurements, and then after surgery, redo all those measurements to make sure that your range of motion is where it should be, and helping you with scar tissue, which massage will do too, increasing circulation, so important in pain. Of course, acupuncture, locally, we needle locally to reduce inflammation. We know when there's inflammation, all those inflammatory cytokines, all those inflammatory markers are doing what they should be doing to try to heal that area, but in chronic inflammation, it's actually doing a lot more damage. A great study on acupuncture was just released on using acupuncture weekly sessions for joint pain related to aromatase inhibitors. So if you are in survivor mode and you are dealing with some joint pain, muscle pain, acupuncture is a great option for you. And there was a study that showed women who were getting ready to go into surgery, breast cancer surgery, and they taught them some self-hypnosis, and they were at the end, they took less pain medication, which resulted in about $700 less that the hospital was spending on each patient. So again, insurance companies like to know that because that means that they're spending less money. But what's more important to you is that you don't have to take as many pain medications with the side effects that they have. Okay, let's talk really quick about chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, such a major topic. In Western medicine, there is nothing that can help with nerve regeneration. So acupuncture has been the only thing, and this is why you hear about, okay, if you're having some neuropathy, you should do acupuncture. Because we've actually seen, and there's been great studies showing that acupuncture increases your nerve conduction. So we are talking about increasing your nerve regeneration, and that is what's going to help the numbness, the tingling, and the pain. All of those things are happening because your nerves have been damaged. So while chemo kills your fastest growing cells, some of it can actually affect your slowest growing cells, which are your nerve cells and your nerve endings. Part of the reason why you're here, your oncologists tell you if you don't do anything, you're hoping for 1 to 2 years, and then your nerves will be growing back by then, because they just grow really, really, really slowly. One of the most important things that you should do for this is every single day, you need to provide your body with constant nerve stimulation and encouraging this feedback loop. So we're talking doing exercises like this. I want you to use different sponges, different tools to rub your hands. Just be careful that you're not actually, damaging anything. Massage therapy can be really helpful. The combo between massage therapy, acupuncture, and PT, I think, is just the rock solid way of getting through CIPN. There was a great article that basically within 6 months, almost 90% of CIPN patients had almost complete resolution after they finished chemo. The trick there, though, is this is a hard thing to deal with while you're still getting chemo, because you're continuing to get that toxic drug that's killing those nerve endings. But please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about this in private. It's probably one of my favorite things. Some supplements here: B complex, fish oil, magnesium, warm water soaks with Epsom salts. Really great thing to do 2 or 3 times a week. Make sure that water is not too hot. And lastly, 2 major things for chemo interactions. So I'll just leave this up again. You'll be able to look at that. So if you're doing chemo, don't take these things. And I think I've pretty much hit on all of these topics, which is make sure you've got the right team together, absolutely get second opinions, and gather your tribe. So your family, support groups, be vocal about how you're feeling and what's important to you, and do something every day to help yourself. be consistent, start slow, set some realistic goals. That's managing that stress is so important. And lastly, probably the main thing out of all of this is for you to live your best life, no matter where you are on that journey. All right, I'm sorry I ran over.
No, I think this is just such a well-received topic, and obviously everybody is just needing it. And so thank you for talking. I do want to be respectful of everybody's times, and even as we went back to you presenting, we had so many more questions come in. And so what I think what actually might be really great is maybe I will send you those questions and I could have you do like a Facebook Live, and we'll post it on our Facebook, and we'll just get everyone's questions answered that way. That way we're not rushing through it, and we'll get to everyone's. So if you have been watching this presentation and you do have questions, submit them. We are going to start wrapping up, but Agnes and I will get together and we will do a Facebook Live and answer all the questions that you did submit. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for participating. This is the most well-participated webinar I've been a part of, so I love it.
Oh, great. Well, that makes me happy too. And thank you to all of you for being here. And the biggest, you are our biggest kind of cheerleaders, is that if we don't have patients like you who are requesting, almost demanding these services, then I wouldn't have the best job in the world. So thank you to all of you.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage everybody to stay updated with our foundation, like us on Facebook, go to our website, be looking for events that are coming this fall. We will be in Arlington and in Beaumont with Survive and Thrive symposiums, where we will be discussing an array of topics along with the survivorship journey. So I encourage you to look on our website for those details. As we are bringing this webinar to a close, a survey is going to open up on your screen. Please take a moment just to give us feedback on today's presentation, as well as topics you would like to see covered in the future. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Agnes. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you again.